We are happy you are here with us. I've been entertaining the students, but I know they would much rather hear from you. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to welcome Alissa Cozad to our chat tonight. As I mentioned before Alissa got on, she's a project manager at Kimley-Horn and a 2018 graduate of Rose-Hulman. And Alissa, I'm going to turn this over to you to start the presentation, and then I'll throw some questions at you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Sorry, everyone, for the technical difficulties. I think we're in the age of Zoom calls and Teams calls and getting confused, but thanks for bearing with us. Like Jill mentioned, my name's Alissa Cozad. I work at Kimley-Horn. I grew up in Northwest Indiana outside of Chicago and attend Rose-Hulman from 2014 to 2018, graduated in May of 2018, and moved to Dallas. And I've really just been taking advantage of the commercial development that's happening here. I've been working with Kimley-Horn since I graduated, and yeah, that's where I am now.
Great, thank you, Alissa. So your first job out of college was with Kimley-Horn then. Did you intern with them during your time at Rose-Hulman?
Yes, so I had 3 internships throughout my time at Rose-Hulman, one after each year besides senior year. And I interned with Kimley-Horn actually my last summer, so after junior year. And then after freshman and sophomore year, I interned with a different company.
Okay, great. Well, what's something you're excited to be working on right now that you think is going to make a difference?
Yeah, I love that question. There's a lot of exciting projects that I get to work on. So it's pretty unique in my role. About the majority of the work that I've done, probably about 90% since I've started full-time, has been work within the city of Dallas. So it's been really neat and rewarding for me to be able to drive downtown and see projects that I've been a part of. I think what I'm most excited for this summer is we have about 4 projects breaking ground this summer of high-rise office in the city of Dallas. And I think summer is a perfect time to get out on site, check out what's going on. And yeah, I really like seeing the finished product of the projects that I get to work on.
Well, that's great. All right. Well, William would like to know, what was something you were glad you did at Rose to prepare you for your position? Or is there something that you wish you would have done?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do I wish I would have done? I think this sounds silly, but just attending Rose-Hulman really prepared me well for my career. Not only from a technical aspect, because let's be real, when you get in the real world, it's a lot different than what you're learning in the classroom. But I think really one of my biggest takeaways from my Rose-Hulman education was just kind of instilling that hard work attitude. Also just being able to interact with professors then, I think really gave me a leg up when I got into the professional world of being able to communicate with others well. Thinking on to what I wish I would have done, there's nothing that screams to me off the top of my head. I think really just being involved as much as possible. It's a lot of fun being on this side really of my career, to be able to be interviewing candidates that are looking to work for Kimley-Horn. And I can't stress, just how much or how important it is to be involved in organizations and take leadership roles in those. I think that may be one of the things looking back I wish I spent more time on, would be leadership roles in different organizations.
Yeah. I know civil engineering obviously is very hands-on, and the civil engineering department does projects within the community. Your very first year of civil engineering, am I correct that you learned how to survey? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are there any classes that within civil engineering that you took with a focus on environmental engineering?
I did. Goodness, it's so funny. 4 years ago seems like a lifetime. I do believe I took an environmental engineering course. I don't remember if it was required of the curriculum or if it was one that I selected, but yes.
Okay. Would you mind expanding a little bit more about how you garnered your internships?
Yeah. So really it all came down to attending the career fairs. I think I did some prep going to is it career services beforehand as well? So, I mean, there's so many options, and it's really like the best of the best that are coming to the Rose-Hulman Career Fair. And I think going into it with an open mind and just really your freshman year, just have the goal of getting comfortable. Not every, major that you're in maybe will be hiring after your freshman year. So definitely don't get discouraged. But even if you do know that information, just use the career fairs, really all of them throughout the year, as an opportunity to kind of sharpen those communication skills, interviewing skills. But yeah, that was kind of my ticket to the internships. I believe I used the info sessions that they had, whether that was before or after the career fair, to kind of have those one-on-one conversations with who was representing the companies, and then just went from there. So I interned, like I said, with the same company the first 2 summers outside of Chicago and really enjoyed that. I think in all majors, there's a lot of different routes that you can take after you graduate from college. So I think definitely, unless I want to work for XYZ company when I graduate, I think it's good to get a feel for what different routes are out there.
Okay. How did you know you wanted to be a civil engineer?
Yeah. I wish I had a magical answer or some aha moment that I knew I wanted to be a civil engineer. And it's kind of funny. I remember when I filled out my Rose-Hulman application when I was in high school, and I was a little overwhelmed that you had to declare a major. I know most colleges did not require that to apply. And a cousin of mine actually attended Rose-Hulman a few years before I did and did civil engineering. And I really just put it down and went with my gut. I grew up really liking to build things. I played with my brother's Legos a ton. So I thought, hey, this might be for me. And then I think really quickly after I started, my education at Rose-Hulman, I realized I was enjoying what I was learning. Now, did I love the late nights of studying and homework? Not all the time, but I did enjoy the topics that we were covering. And I know not everyone has that experience, their freshman or sophomore or even junior or senior year. So I think for me, it was making sure that I was enjoying what I was studying so that I'd be happy in my career afterwards. So I know it's not the best story, but I kind of just went with my gut, and thank goodness it worked out.
That's okay. It worked out well for all of us. Alissa also worked as an admissions tour guide and an ambassador for us. So we've known Alissa since she came to Rose-Hulman. Andrew would like to know if you are studying as an understudy with a PE, and are you still studying to pass that exam?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly don't even think I knew what a professional engineering license was when I was in college. So you're already a step ahead of where I was. And yes, so I have been, since I graduated, working with a professional engineer in the state of Texas. It varies throughout the states. I could take the professional engineering exam prior to my 4 years experience. So I actually took my exam last April and passed. So that was a huge milestone for my career. Thank you. And
Wonderful.
This July will be when I can apply for my licensure. So with civil engineering, there's definitely a few different routes you can take. Some career opportunities won't require the EIT license, which stands for engineer in training, and won't require a professional engineering license. But for the work that I do, it's really crucial for kind of the next step in my career. So yeah, that was a great question.
That's wonderful. Congratulations on passing that. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know Rose has prepared you well. So
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about what kind of activities or clubs you belonged to while you were at Rose?
Yeah. When I was at Rose-Hulman, let's see, I was involved in the American Society of Civil Engineers, which I have a feeling most civil engineering majors are. It's kind of funny now being on this side of the civil engineering world that specific professional organization tends to apply more post-grad with public sector work, and I do mostly private sector work. So some of my coworkers who do public work are still involved in that organization, where I've picked a few other organizations to dive into. Also at Rose, I was involved in Greek life on campus. So I was in a sorority and held a few different positions in that, which I think, again, was a great opportunity to, even things as silly as sending emails, really start getting some experience doing that, speaking in front of large audiences, things like that. I'm trying to think what else I was involved in. I know I was bouncing around campus, so I know I was doing something. Like Jill mentioned, I was involved on the admissions team. I also did some volunteering at the Children's Museum downtown in Terre Haute. I spent hours doing homework and studying. So that's a little bit of what I did while I was at Rose.
Okay. What were your favorite classes while you were at Rose-Hulman?
What were my favorite classes? I think, so at Rose, you don't, at least when I went there, you didn't really have to declare a certain path in civil engineering. You got to pick and choose your classes. And I tended to do mostly water resources type classes because that interests me. Some students went structural routes, some did geotech, some really did a mix of all of those. And I really enjoyed kind of those junior and senior year classes where you got to pick where you were kind of taking your education. And I also love just the class sizes of those. So I remember it would be the same, 6 or 8 of us in a class, and you really got to know your classmates well in those and just get more one-on-one time with professors and just a little bit more hands-on. So I would say those were some of my favorites. I mean, I also had some really good, is it still humanities and social sciences, HSS courses?
And arts.
And some of, yes.
Right.
And some of those classes, I mean, even the professors, I still think about just some of the things that I learned. I took an engineering ethics course. I took a writing in a digital age course. And I think some of those things still kind of carry on to my career today.
Wonderful. If you're looking back at your Rose-Hulman experience, and really, Alissa, it wasn't that long ago. It may seem like a while ago.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
Do you have a most memorable moment that you look back on and say, wow, that was amazing. I can't believe that happened. Or have you forgotten everything about Rose-Hulman?
I haven't forgotten everything.
Okay, good.
I think really graduation was just a really surreal moment for me. And, you work so hard and it flies by just like everyone tells you that it will. And I think that was just a moment that I was proud of everything that I had accomplished. Maybe a moment that I wasn't proud of, but that really stands out to me is during my freshman year, I went to my first ever college class, 8 a.m. on a Monday or a Thursday, whenever the first day of class was. And it was Physics 1, the most basic course really you could take at Rose. And I was so overwhelmed. And I went to my academic counselor and said, what can I do? I'm not ready for this. And I just kind of look back at that and laugh because I spent a lot of hours in my professor's office that year or that semester doing extra practice problems over and over and over again. But it's kind of funny that was my first day to graduating, and it's just amazing really what I learned in that time and who I was able to connect with and make relationships with.
Something that's pretty unique about Rose's graduation ceremony. Do you want to talk about walking down the hill? And I'm sure you can probably elicit more emotion about it than I can because you experienced it.
Yeah, so hopefully I get all the pieces right. So I think freshman orientation, or kind of the first week that you're on campus, you have a gathering on the football field, and then you kind of walk up as a class through campus up to what is the
Hatfield Hall, probably.
Hatfield Hall. There we go. And you walk up to Hatfield and there's a big celebration. And then on graduation, it's kind of like coming full circle. So all of the graduates gather at Hatfield Hall and then you walk back through campus. But what's really special is that the professors and all of the campus staff are kind of lining the sidewalk as you're walking back. So I remember just being able to wave, to the civil engineering professors and just them being so excited for us. And then you walk all the way through campus to the SRC. So with bagpipes and all, and it was really special. And I remember graduation was, I got to have some extended family come, and it was neat just to be able to share campus. I mean, it's so beautiful with them.
It is. And I think it's just an extremely exciting time, but something about being escorted by bagpipers makes it a little bit more special for sure. Great. Hey, Andrew would like to know, how collaborative were the civil engineering, your colleagues and fellow students?
Yeah, I would say extremely collaborative. There's for civil engineering specifically, and I think for nearly every major, there's kind of I don't remember what we called it, but kind of a study space designated just for that major. And oh my goodness, I wouldn't even want to know the amount of hours I spent in there. But I feel like we really never did much homework or studying alone. It was always, hey, let's get together and work through these problems. Hey, let's do practice problems for an exam. And I think I draw a lot of similarities between kind of the work ethic at Rose-Hulman and then the work ethic at my job, which I just love. And it's kind of that mentality of leaving no one behind. And I remember even freshman year, I didn't even know some people, but they lived in my residence hall and they knew how to do, the calculus homework that I didn't. And it was like, hey, nice to meet you. Can you spend 10 minutes explaining this to me? So I would say from that perspective, extremely collaborative. Rose-Hulman, it's a small, tight-knit campus, and I think everyone wants everyone to succeed.
That's great. So you just mentioned how much you love working at Kimley-Horn, which is great to hear, but what does a day in the life of a project manager look like at Kimley-Horn?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish there was a simple answer because no day is the same, but it's been fun. It's been fun to see kind of how my daily tasks have evolved just in the last almost 4 years. I would say a day in the life today. I probably spend about half my day on phone calls, Zoom calls, Teams calls, and that will be with typically project team consultants. So we work a lot with architects, landscape architects, MEP engineers. And yeah, we are coordinating in order to get a project off the ground. And then sometimes we'll also be on the phone call with owners, answering kind of more high level questions, whereas with the consultants, we're more on a technical basis. And then I would say the other half of my day is a combination of doing plan production. So I would say for my job, kind of the large deliverable that we produce are civil engineering plans. So I spend a lot of time in CAD doing that. And then there's also a good chunk of my day that's spent training new hires that we have. I also have an integration role with my company. So meeting new hires that aren't on my team, taking them out to coffee, organizing events, just to really get people to know others in the office. So in my office, we have just over 300, which is I think one or two of our biggest offices. We have a lot more smaller offices sprinkled throughout the country. So we have quite a few integration roles where we take that really seriously of just making sure that you know your coworkers.
Great, great. What was your senior project at Rose-Hulman?
Yeah, my senior project, I was thinking about this as I was driving home today. My project was designing a visitor center near the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. So, and kind of the fun part, my senior design group actually got to fly to Virginia over fall break to do a site visit and to meet our client. And I think I did kind of the transportation component of it. So kind of site planning, which really did relate to what I do now a little bit. And as I was kind of reflecting on this earlier today, it was funny how, we had to make meeting agendas and meeting minutes and talk with our client. And it really is, I'm like, wow, it was preparing me for what I do almost every day. So yeah, it was really neat. I had never been to that area of the country before. And it was a fun one.
Regardless of what your major is at Rose-Hulman, your senior year is usually a senior design project made up of teams of 4 working directly with a faculty member. And they're very real projects. Sometimes a client will come in and and work with a team of Rose-Hulman students to complete a project. So you are getting real life hands-on experience like Alissa talked about with out in Chesapeake Bay. We have a question. This is good. I hadn't thought about this. Were there any classes in particular that you think made you more marketable to get your summer internships? Was there anything those companies were looking for? And then maybe your final offer from Kimley-Horn.
Yeah, I'm thinking back on that. It's so funny. I think really freshman year, companies are gonna hire freshmen with the assumption that you know nothing, because that's pretty accurate, or with the assumption, with we need to see X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I'll keep thinking about this throughout the call if there were any particular classes that I think would have given me a leg up. I know, your freshman, sophomore classes, really wherever you are at school, are going to be pretty similar. And again, I sound like a recruiter here, but from being on the interviewing side at my job now, I really think, especially freshman year, being involved on campus would give you that leg up compared to, I took physics 3 my freshman year, whereas all my classmates took physics 2.
Okay, great. In your time at Rose-Hulman, did you work on any local projects within the community? I know recently they have had some of the civil engineers design the Griffith Skate Park and work with local churches to make them more accessible. And I didn't know if when you were a civil, you worked on any local projects.
Yeah, that's really neat that they're doing that. I don't recall anything. I don't know if it was maybe my senior year was when Rose-Hulman acquired the property across the street. And I knew there were conversations about, looking at stream mitigation or things like that. We never got on site, but I will say I spent quite a bit of time in the creek on campus for some of my classes, which was always fun.
Okay. Did you or any of your friends ever do Engineers Without Borders?
I did not, and I was thinking about this, but I know that Engineers Without Borders is such a diverse organization where civils are definitely needed, but I always thought it was fascinating of how really any engineering major or really any major could get involved. So I don't have direct experience, but I think that again just builds on that more real life hands-on experience that really just outweighs anything you're going to read in a textbook.
Right. Well, pre-COVID, Engineers Without Borders, and it continues to be this, but currently they're working on bringing clean water closer to cities. So those cities don't have, those residents do not have to travel that far to get clean water. And they worked in Ghana and some other countries. I think with COVID, it's changed the focus a little bit. But if I were you and I were a civil engineer and you end up at Rose-Hulman, Engineers Without Borders is definitely something I would check out and just see where we're going right now and what projects we'll be completing for them. So, yeah. I know you mentioned that you did a little bit. Did you do a full concentration in water resources or just took a few classes?
I would say a concentration. Any of my electives, I did water resources.
Okay. And how much of that do you do now working with water resources, or has your job completely changed from what you thought you were going to do when you were at Rose-Hulman?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My coworkers, we have a running joke that the Manning's equation, which is an equation you'll learn in civil engineering and in your water classes, is the only thing that we use that we learned from school. That's not 100% accurate, but that is something we definitely use. And it is funny, being in the real world that, you're not doing practice problems. You're not in these hypothetical situations. You're designing for real life, real people. But I think, nothing is going to beat that foundation that you have in all the classes that you take. But any real world experience, any internships is going to be just way more realistic of what you're actually doing. But like I mentioned, the technical foundation that I got at Rose-Hulman was obviously superior. And then I would say just the work ethic that was kind of instilled in us. And I think, you know, most high schoolers who are coming to Rose-Hulman have that work ethic in them already. And you just continue that on in college and then in my career. And that's really my chunk that I would take away is just I learned how to manage my time. I learned how to communicate with others. I obviously got the technical foundation that I needed. But sometimes I wonder really like which one do I use more in my day-to-day? But it's a combination of both.
Okay. Alissa, most of the students, if not all of these students on this chat tonight, are admitted seniors. So they are
Congratulations.
They are going through the college search process. How did you decide, or what made you decide to choose Rose-Hulman over any of the other schools you were considering at the time?
Yeah. Well, one, because Rose-Hulman's the best. That's not biased. But yeah, so when I was a senior in high school and looking at different colleges, I really made the decision early on of, do I like a bigger school or the smaller schools? And I really just found myself being pulled to the smaller schools. I honestly thought all of my life I would go to the big state school where I grew up, and that would be it. And then kind of visiting Rose-Hulman, I think I ended up applying, and this sounds so silly, I applied because Rose-Hulman, it was free application back then. I don't think it is anymore. I applied, I ended up getting in, and then I was like, wow, maybe I should actually check this out. So I think probably around now was when I visited my senior year for the first time and really just fell in love with Rose-Hulman's campus. I mean, I love that it's just like a bubble. That's how my mom would always describe it when I was in college. She said, yeah, Terre Haute's fine, but Rose-Hulman is like this bubble. And everyone gets along. Everyone, you know, cares about each other. And gosh, I mean, I don't talk about my college experience as much now, but it's just the relationships that I got to build with my professors. I didn't have any of these TAs that I hear at other schools, and it was going straight to the source of, you know, what information do I need? What help did I need? And I think like you can't get that at a bigger school. You know, I never had a class more than 30 students, things like that. So I could really, you know, stand on my soapbox and say these things for hours, but I do think that it really was a unique education experience, and I think it was a great education.
Great. And one of the things Alissa just mentioned is that all of the classes are taught by experts in their area. Our classes are not taught by teaching assistants or graduate assistants. They're taught by professors with, you know, an outstanding amount of knowledge in those areas. So you're getting the best from the best in their fields. And that's one of the things that I think sets Rose-Hulman apart from everybody else, in addition to the collaborative atmosphere. Here's a question for you. Is there something you do in your current job that is very different from what you thought you might do? Since you interned there, it might be very similar because you might have known going in.
I don't know. I think so. What I do at Kimley-Horn, you can classify really as land development is kind of the civil engineering sector of what I'm in. And it's not taught well at any school because it's really a unique kind of subsector of civil engineering. Different components are taught, but really no colleges teach a land development course. And I think it makes sense based on what we do. But really, so when I was a junior in college and I had heard about Kimley-Horn, I wanted an internship so bad. I had heard such great things. And I eventually got one throughout the interview process, and everyone would ask me, awesome, you got the internship, what are you going to be doing for them? And I said, I don't know. I didn't really know what they did, and I was excited to learn that. And I think what I really like about my job is just kind of it's so diverse and it's so different every day. And there's a really huge entrepreneurial aspect to it that I really like. I know kind of engineers get a bad rep for not being the most outgoing people sometimes. And that's okay. Some of my coworkers get annoyed by me asking what they did on their weekend. But what I really like is that at my job, I have spent the last 3.5, almost 4 years building this really technical foundation and slowly getting exposure to working with people outside of the firm, the consultants that I mentioned earlier, clients, things like that. And over time, my career will really evolve into this kind of practice builder position is what we call it at Kimley-Horn, where I will be able to have a team and we will be out winning work and managing the people below us. And I just kind of like the challenge that comes along with that. I'm not going to be doing the same thing for my entire career. And now that I've been babbling, I forgot the question that you even asked me in the first place.
That's okay. No, I think you answered it. It was just that, are you doing anything different at Kimley-Horn than you ever thought you might do? And actually, I think you answered it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, speaking with developers and having me being a trusted advisor to a developer of how they want to build a high-rise office in downtown. Alissa, how do you do it? And I now have the tools to answer that. So I don't think when I graduated college, I would have ever expected that or known that this was what I'd be doing today.
Great. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Alissa.
Okay.
You've got this captive audience of seniors here. What last piece of advice would you give them as they're going through this college search?
I think I've always been, throughout college and throughout my career, a person who wants to be happy where they're at. And I saw a lot of people in my career and some at Rose where, they just don't love the major that they're in, or coworkers that really don't love what they're doing. And I know this is not really a technical answer, but I think just doing what you enjoy and kind of changing paths and don't just settle. I think life is really short. And I think to pick a major and then a month later not be happy with it, or even to pick a college and say, oh my God, the amount of coworkers, it was like, yeah, my parents really wanted me to do this major, so I did it, and now I hate my job. And it's like, I don't want anyone to do that. So really just kind of figuring out what you like, and I know that's easier said than done, but finding a college that seems like a good fit for you, not for your parents, not for your best friend, but something that you think that you could really grow. And then the same thing with your career. If you get a job out of college and don't like it after a few months, seriously, there's so many opportunities out there. It just always breaks my heart when people are just kind of settling. Oh, they already started, they don't want to change. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Okay. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm going to remind the students that you have until May 1st to make your decision. If you would have any questions about civil engineering or any questions in general, please don't hesitate to contact us here in admissions. Our email address is just admissions@rose-hulman.edu, and those are all lowercase letters. We'd be happy to answer any questions for you. I will reiterate too, you don't have to know what you're going to do right when you come into Rose. We give you until your sophomore year to declare your major. So you do have some time to take classes in various areas. If you think you know what you might want to major in, then you should start in that. But by all means, follow Alissa's advice that if you're not happy, find your passion and follow that as well. So Thank you, Alissa, tonight for joining us. I apologize to everyone for the technical glitch. That is my fault. And I wish you all the best of luck. And like I said, stay in touch, come visit us. And we're really happy you joined us this evening. So thank you again. Have a nice evening, everybody. Bye.
Thank y'all. Bye.